I'm going to talk about the title of what I'm talking is The Harrowing Journey of Venture Expeditions, or The Harrowing Journey of Social Enterprise. So really quickly, I want to introduce myself. Bill said my name's Aaron. That's right. I want to give you guys some pictures. Some of them are of my family. I'm just going to pass them around. I know this is kind of outdated. I don't know what happened to the screen. Can you just throw it back up? Some of these are outdated, but I have some pictures of some of the refugee things that we do on the border of Burma, some of my family, my in-laws. Just gives you a picture of my life. I kind of want this to be more of an intimate thing as opposed to like me sitting here talking the whole time. So with that too, please feel free to interrupt me. I'm going to share my story of how I started the organization, and then from there I have two. I'll give you some reflections of the last 10 years. It's been 10 years since I started, so reflect on, what would I do different? Would I do it again? Those kinds of things. But then I'll do two breakout sessions after this. The first one is called Social Enterprise versus Social Responsibility. And so we'll talk through that. What does that look like? And we'll do some small group stuff. The second one is the benefits and challenges of social enterprise. So I'm really going to focus on what social enterprise means and what it's all about, because that's what venture is. So let me just start with my story. Actually, you know what? I'm going to start with this video. I was telling some people here that I speak often, but I don't consider myself a speaker. So if I'm a little fragmented, that's why. So here's the video.
Okay, so maybe you've seen a commercial of some sort that portrayed a significant need or injustice in the world. Thought, man, I really wish there was something I could do about this. Well, we did too. And so, we hopped on our bikes and set out to cycle across the country to raise money for a humanitarian missions project. That first trip grew into a national community involving thousands who actively engage people in God's story of justice here in the U.S. and around the world. And this is how we do it. We bike, hike, walk, run, even paddle, domestic and sometimes international. And our action inspires people to give and to raise awareness in their communities about our friends in need. Justice is about transformation. Our friends in need are transformed through clean water, rescue, education, jobs, and the story of Jesus. This happens from our very own projects like safe houses and refugee feeding programs, and also through our many partner organizations and connections with national leaders. We call this part benefiting the world. And for us, we're transformed through the adventure and sacrifice, giving and advocating. We call this part discovering the soul. Together, we're transformed as we engage in God's story of justice. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is our response to the world's significant needs. Find out how you can join or support our community at www.ventureexpeditions.org. Benefit the world and discover your soul.
So let me just tell you a little bit about Venture Expeditions. Our mission, the venture community, actively engages people in God's story of justice. We are a faith-based Christian organization, and engaging people in God's story of justice looks different here as opposed to overseas. We have an arm in America and we have an arm overseas. In the U.S., we do, like the video said, we bike, hike, run, even paddle from time to time to raise funds for humanitarian missions projects, everything from clean water projects to clinics in Africa and underdeveloped areas of Africa to refugee services and educational initiatives in Asia. So we do a lot of different things. We have a foundation in Thailand, so it's kind of our sister foundation there. And then here in the U.S., like I said, we do a lot of the biking, hiking, mostly across country. So a typical trip would look like we have 20 people show up in LA and they bike to Washington, D.C. or New York, and they stop in churches along the way. They talk about these humanitarian missional projects, educating people about what's going on around the world and raising support for those projects. So a typical trip that we do will raise anywhere from $20,000 to $200,000 for these projects. Just depends on the scope of how big it is, how long it is, how many people are involved. So that's the quick synopsis of Venture. Let me tell you how it started. It actually started not down this way, but over here. I was at North Central, and one of the guys on my floor he was big into running, and so I wanted to hang out with him, and so I decided to start running as well. And he ran a lot. He ran about 6 miles a day, which was quite a push for me. But I figured, hey, it's good for me. I get to hang out with him. connect with him. He's a good friend. And so I started doing that. After about 2 weeks, he had told me he wanted to bike across the U.S. And I told him, there's no way I would ever do that. That sounds ridiculous. I didn't know anybody that had ever done that before. And quite honestly, I wasn't interested. I hadn't ridden my bike since 7th grade. So the idea of that just sounded daunting. So I told him no. And this was, like I said, this was about 10 years ago. Shortly after that, through reflection and prayer, for whatever reason, I felt like I needed to do this bike trip, and I just couldn't figure out why. It wasn't logical, but I just really felt compelled to do it. And so I went back to him and I said, hey, I will do the trip, but I really feel like I need to do it for a cause. I don't want to spend the whole summer biking selfishly. I want to do it for some good reason. I mean, I'm going to not work, instead I'm going to do this bike trip. I'm going to have to sell my car and whatever I have to pay for it. And those are all things that I wasn't really excited about, but I figured, hey, if I'm going to do it, let's do it for a cause. Let's make it for charity. And that's kind of when Venture started. We called it Venture for lack of another name, but it's the only thing we could think of. We thought, adventure, we're raising venture capital for nonprofits, so it just kind of seemed to fit. So we called it Venture. And at that time, we weren't established nonprofit. We weren't anything more than just a couple guys that were biking across the country for a good cause. And so we started planning in March, and our plan was to leave in May. We had a lot of work to do, because for one, we had to figure out what we were raising money for. 2, we had to get bikes and figure out how to do the whole biking thing. 3, we had to figure out how to raise money. So there was just a lot working against us. So that first year, we ended up connecting with a local church, Cedar Valley Church. It's in Bloomington, and they were gracious enough to hear us out, hear our vision. And there's not a lot of people when you come to them with the dream of, hey, I'm going to bike across America and raise money for a good cause. There's not a lot of people that would be like, all right, yeah, just run your funds through here. We'll provide financial accountability. We'll support you. We'll give you a spot, on Sunday morning to share what you're doing. There's not a lot of people that will do that. And so we're really grateful to the church for giving us the opportunity to work with them. And so they provided our financial accountability. Everyone that we collected checks from wrote checks out to Cedar Valley Church, and we gave it to them, and they processed it. And so that summer, myself, Mike, who's the guy that I was running with, and one other guy named Jesse, we ended up biking from Seattle to New York, about 3,800 miles, and we raised money for a church in Argentina. It was a startup church, and at that time we didn't have these cool gadgets where you can map out your trip or call people. Most of the time, probably about 20% of the time, we had service. The 80% of the time we didn't. We had one phone between 3 of us, and we had we didn't even have a digital camera. We had a 35 millimeter camera. So that's kind of how a lot's changed since then. So this was a big deal back then. I didn't even know that anybody else did that. Now, if you just type in Google, you can find a lot of people that do this. So I just remember day in and day out, we'd have a map in front of us, and we'd be like, okay, we're in Seattle. I think we can get to this town. And then we'd look through a directory, and we'd call a church, and we'd say, hey, we're 3 guys biking across the U.S. for a good cause. Would you let us come and stay at your church and talk to your congregation, or would you do an ice cream social and invite people out to come hear what we're doing? Strangely enough, that worked back then. I don't think it would work now, but for whatever reason, it did. And like I said, we raised $17,000 that summer. And the experience, after biking that far, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do this again. I had my fix. It was great, really cool experience, but it was a lot of work. My butt still hurts. It was 8 weeks on the road, and I just felt like, okay, that was good. We did a good thing, had a great experience, but I'm done. And then that was in August, and then a few months later, I kind of just, for whatever reason, after you do something like that, it kind of gets in your blood. And so I started thinking, man, we should do that. That experience really made a difference in my life. I feel like I discovered more about who I am. discovered my soul. And we were able to like benefit people in the world that needed help, needed funds. And around the same time, we went to this conference about humanitarian aid and social justice, which at the time was like this new concept. Like it had always existed. There's always been charities, but AIDS in Africa, we can help people with AIDS, and like this, it was just like this new thing. And so we were kind of like, we are a faith-based, or we're faith-based, we're Christians, we work in churches, but we interact with so many people that aren't Christians, that wouldn't necessarily give to like a faith-based Christian cause. And so we decided that, let's work with a faith-based Christian organization that's doing a humanitarian thing that, people of all faiths can give to. And so that year we started raising, so we decided to do it again. We decided to bike from Portugal to Poland, which is 4,200 miles, a little bit longer. We decided to invite more people to join our team of 3, so we invited 2 more people, so we had 5. We came up with the slogan, benefit the world, discover your soul, and came up with this logo, which you don't see on there, but it's a phoenix. Let me pass these two flyers around as well. This is a little bit about what we do. So we invited more people, and we wanted them to share this experience. It meant so much to us personally. We wanted to share with other people, and we wanted to do something where people of all types of people, all faiths of people, even though we're Christians, would want to give to it. So we raised money for Cry Africa, and they ministered to the spiritual and physical needs of AIDS victims in Africa. And people were really inspired, when you told them that we're going to bike from Portugal to Poland, and we would be pumping gas out at Bobby and Steve's over here, and we give them a flyer that we just kind of made on our computers. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we just put these black and white flyers. It says 5 guys, 5 country, or 8 countries, 4,000 miles, 1 cause. Like something really like gripping like that, with the face of an African kid and like a bike at the bottom. We just hand out these flyers and we say, hey, we're biking this summer to raise money for this cause. Our goal is to raise $20,000, and we're giving our summers and selling our cars and giving things that we have away so we can do this trip. And our hope is that it inspires you to give. And people were just giving 20 spots, 50 spots, just giving money. And it was just really awesome to see how people were moved to do something good by our dream. And so that summer we biked through Portugal, Spain, France, Netherlands, Germany, Poland, and we didn't speak any of those languages. We didn't plan out our trip or anything. It was kind of just like, you just go from place to place, follow the map. We had one stop planned. That was in Brussels, and that was the only night we slept inside the whole trip. So it was crazy. And on that trip, my bike was stolen, which was quite the experience, because I thought for sure I'd have to go home and pack up my stuff. And we did this whole trip on about $1,800, including our airfare, all of our gear, our food, all that kind of stuff. And but for some reason we made it. But that was the beginning. And that summer we raised $26,000. That was the beginning of Venture Expeditions. So we did